Hey Bill,
How's it going? Hi.
I'm okay. How about you?
I'm okay. Little
Yeah,
crazy time.
it is crazy. Yep. So, yeah, how are you dealing with this situation? I mean, what are you doing?
Well, uh, I'm lucky. I have this house kind of far out in Brooklyn, and we're lucky the area is not so crowded, so we can go outside and there's trees
Yeah.
and then I find myself just playing my guitar more than ever, so that's good. It's almost like remembering when I was 16 years old and just playing and playing and playing all the time. It's like there's nothing else to do. So it's sort of a reminder that I still love to play the guitar. It's one of the first times when there's not some deadline where I have to prepare for something so it's just playing just for the love of playing, which is great. I have so much more time to, like, I'll play a song over and over and over and over. In the last 30, 40 years, everything is so rushed. You learn something faster. And I would just stay with one thing all day. I would play the same song all day. And then, oh, wow, I found there's something would reveal itself that I didn't.
What kind of song was it that you played all day?
Well, I was playing like Someone to Watch Over Me, George Gershwin's song. Or a few days ago, I did this. I said I didn't have any gigs, but actually it was sort of a gig at home. I did this online fundraiser for New York musicians where I just played in my room here. So I was playing New York, New York, the Frank Sinatra song.
Yeah.
I've probably played that. I don't really know that song, but I must have played it on some old gigs, or, you hear it so many times. But I spent the whole day like trying to find the way he was singing it, the way he phrased it, and tried to write that down and stuff like that. And so for thinking that I had that gig coming up, I was playing tunes related to that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to play New York, New York,
Yeah, it's a nice song.
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel? How did it feel to play in that format?
Well, it was a little, no, I was pretty stressed. I spent the whole day trying to set up I figured out a way I could put the microphone in the thing and try to get a decent, so it would sound okay. And in the end, nothing worked. And then the website kept crashing, and
oh no,
I started like, an hour late. I mean, the people were amazing. So in the end, it was just this frantic, it started and then the thing crashed. So then we gave up, but then I came back. So in the end, I just turned on I used the microphone built into the thing, and I don't even know if it was, well, it was good. Once I finally started playing, it was good.
We learn to adapt to these kind of situations.
Yeah.
Think differently.
But the thing for me that's so difficult is just everything, my whole life, it's been about playing with other people, so it's so hard to, like right now, the bass player, Thomas Morgan, we're in the same neighborhood, and it's like we can't even get together to play, we wave at each other on the street, and it's
awkward,
so frustrating.
Right? Seeing friends outside, you can't really connect. You want to say hi, but then also you want to hug somebody, you want to hug your friend.
No, it's really,
you can't, and you shouldn't.
So I mean, is it the same there too?
It's the same, thing? Yeah. I mean, I think the situation is sounds a bit worse in America right now, but I think on a weird level, we're all in the same boat for once.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. The whole world is dealing.
Yeah, nobody's playing concerts right now. There's no concert today, and not tomorrow, and not in a week.
Wow. It's incredible.
Everybody's at home. It's weird.
Yeah. And then I know, I complain, but then I think, wow, I'm so lucky when I think of so many other people that are, don't have a place to stay or
yeah.
It's unbelievable. I have food and I have the house, and
Yeah.
so really lucky.
In a way, we're forced to be in the moment.
Yeah, and that's where the guitar has helped me too a lot. Just as always, it's easy to get frightened and let your mind like, oh, what's going to happen? But I start playing, and it takes me into that. Just being, okay, I'm here, I'm safe right at this moment.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to play, and the music takes you in there. So that's been amazing.
Talking about Someone to Watch Over Me, that's one of my favorite songs. And
oh, wow.
And you're recording with Motion on the, what is it, on Broadway 1 or 2 or maybe 3, the one with Lee Konitz.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you're playing that song for a while now.
Well, so see, now I can't even remember what. So did we record that with Paul?
Let me see, Bill.
Because I don't even remember. I never go back and listen to these things.
You don't?
No. The one with Lee is. Whoa!
Can you see this?
Yeah. So we did it on there.
It's not with Lee. It's with Lovano, but with Charlie Hayden. So yeah, I'm wondering if you play a song for that long, and now you're telling me you're discovering new things.
Oh yeah. No, it was like, no, there's so many things in there that I didn't see before. I mean, that's one advantage about getting older is I keep coming back to things, whatever song, whether it's mine or a standard or whatever, but something that you think you understood, and then years later you come back and it's like, wow, there's so much stuff in there that's what's amazing about music. It just there's no way you could ever finish it So that one song, I could just go on and on just with that one song
Can you tell me a few specifics of things that you now discovered in it, and how you discovered it?
Well, I mean, just the movement of the chords. In a technical way, I'm not sure if I could explain it exactly. It's almost like my ear opened up more to the way the harmony moves, the way it moves down sort of, and just keeps resolving. And somehow I was able to see further ahead than like a song like that. When I would first learn it, it's more like I'm looking at each little, each chord or each harmonic movement. I'm more in a panic to get each one right, and I'm not seeing the larger picture. Yeah, and so I think something opened up the way I don't know if that makes any sense.
It makes sense, and also it makes sense in this situation where you have more time for looking at things, as opposed to being, having a little bit more stress or little amount of time. So you're focusing on getting this information right, and once there's time, you go back in a way, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a good description. Even on a small scale or a large scale, it's like when you're in a rush, you're just looking at each event and trying to. But when you have, it allowed me to see the whole song more clearly. And then I went back and listened to some, like, I guess maybe Ella Fitzgerald was one of the versions that I was most familiar with. But then a friend of mine, I don't know if you know Don Falzone, he's a bass player. He's the husband of Claudia Engelhardt, who does sound for me all the time. And Actually, it's weird you showed that Charlie Hayden thing. Don plays a lot with Alan Broadbent, the piano player that played a lot with Charlie. And I was talking about that song to him, and he said, "Oh, have you heard? There's a version of Little Jimmy Scott singing that song."
Oh, okay.
And it's like, man, it is. You got to hear this.
I'll check it out.
Blew my mind. That talk about phrasing and time, just his use of space and time. It kind of reminded me of, I don't know, Miles or something, like just, and it's incredible, beautiful arrangement. Well, there's Ron Carter and Grady Tate and Kenny Barron are playing, and Johnny Mandel did the arrangements. So it's like this beautiful,
sounds
lush
like
arrangement.
RCA recording or something.
Yeah, I forget what label it's on, but anyway, that was right in the midst of when I was working on that song. I heard that version and it was like, whoa, it sounded incredible.
The verse is nice too, right?
Yeah. Same. That's got stuff in it too, like crazy.
I love this version by Blossom Dearie. I don't know if you've heard
I don't know that. I have to check that out. Yeah, there's really so many. Yeah, it's like endless once you get going with this stuff.
How can you explain how you go about when you learn a song for the first time? Maybe a song like that.
That's changed so much over, like, when I think something has changed in the way I process things. When I was in college, I think I remember it seemed like I could learn many tunes pretty quickly, but it was more like some sort of a mathematical, like I was reading the music for one thing. I wasn't listening to it as much as looking at it. And then I would memorize it somehow. So many tunes I learned during that time that are just, now they're just a part of me. Like, I don't know, All the Things You Are, or Stella by Starlight or something. But it seemed like I could learn more quickly a new song, at least the way I remember it. But what's happening now, it seems like it takes me longer, I guess, because I want the song to be as, like, say I learned All the Things You Are 50 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's just like you feel it. It's like inside you're not thinking of notes, or it's just part of your blood or something. So then when I learn a new song, I want to get it to that same point where, and I don't feel really comfortable. Of course, a lot of times I'll play new music on a gig, but where I really want it to be is where I'm at that point where I'm not thinking about letters or numbers or mathematical things, where it's just, where it feels like you're just singing the song. So it's changed. And now I'll learn more. It helps me a lot to listen to other people's versions of the song, or it's more, I'm finding myself reading music less than I used to. I want to be to the point where I'm not just like reading a chart or something.
Did it come out of a conscious decision, or did you just notice it?
Well, it just was gradual. That's actually the way I start. Early on, I played clarinet in the school band and all this stuff. And that was this very formal way of just reading, pushing buttons and reading what was on the paper. But at the beginning, when I picked up the guitar, it was completely intuitive. I didn't know what notes I was playing. I played guitar for a long time. It was a completely separate part of my brain, and probably the more natural musical way of playing. I just was play with my friends. I'd listen to records or figure out stuff, but I didn't really know what it was. Where when I played the clarinet, I knew exactly what everything was. And then so later, when I got more serious about wanting to play the guitar, I started, I better learn how to read and do all this stuff on the guitar. And then I don't know, there was a long period, and then I went to Berkeley and all that stuff. And it seemed like a lot of what I was dealing with, I was always looking at some paper or something. And well, I remember one big lesson for me was when I went to Nashville to record this Nashville album. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It seems like you know a lot of my albums, but
you might have picked one that I don't know as good. So tell me about it.
So my first group that I had with my own music was with Joey Barron and Hank Roberts and Kermit Driscoll. And we had long history together. And I sort of had a way of working with them. Like I was used to if I would write a new song, I would write it out and I would bring it to the band, and then we would learn it. And then we would all absorb it, and it would become this whole, it would expand from there. We absorbed all these things that I had written, but it would always start with this, what was on paper. That was just the way I presented music to people. So it was a big leap for me I had this opportunity to go to Nashville to record with guys that I didn't know. Was one of these where the record company, I was with None Such at that time, and Bob Hurwitz. We were talking one day, and he said, "What would you think about going to Nashville to play with some of those guys?" And I was like, "Wow, that would be amazing." I don't really know anybody, and he introduced me to a man, Kyle Lenning. Yeah, Kyle Lenning. He's a producer, musician in Nashville who knew a lot of the musicians there. And I went down there, and he introduced me to, it was Alison Krauss's band at the time. And so that's where I met Victor Krauss, the bass player who I've played with a lot. I met him for the very first time there, and Jerry Douglas and Ron Block, Adam Steffi, these incredible, like mind-blowing musicians, but they were coming from such a different world than I was used to. And so I came down there with my usual, I didn't know how a banjo worked or a mandolin, or I'd never played with a banjo or a mandolin or dobro and stuff. And I had my charts, but none of them used that. They all just learned it by that was like a shock. Like, wow, you're not going to look at that. They just would listen and then, okay, I got it.
How fast were they?
Like
pretty
instantly.
Fast? Yeah.
Like Jerry Douglas, I couldn't even believe it. He was like, all of them. It was like there was no really they just would, like Jerry Douglas. There was one I was going to have him play this one song, and we put it on for him to listen to, and he was like talking and doing other stuff. I thought, man, aren't you you should be listening, you know. And then he just bam. And there was another song where I had written a sort of a inner, there was like a melody line, and then there was this sort of slightly unusual inner harmony part. And I can't remember whose idea was. He said, "Oh yeah, maybe I should play that inner." And it was like, wow. I mean, you really was hearing the whole,
all the levels,
yeah, and just, I mean, that just kept happening. I started noticing wait, how come these guys aren't reading charts, you know? Or even Jim Hall. I had a duo gig with Jim Hall. This is, I don't know when, long ago. And I brought in a tune of mine that he had never played. And I just noticed how quickly he just absorbed it. So he wasn't looking at he was just hearing it, you know. And anyway, I'm just saying, gradually I realized how that I've been trying to get away from.
So nowadays,
the paper.
Are there certain situations where you just play the stuff for the musicians?
Sometimes, yeah, and especially with guys that I play with a lot, like if it's Tony Shear or Kenny Wallison or Thomas Morgan. Thomas Morgan is another one that just, before we have a new song, and then before I know it, he's got it in there already, you know. So
did he talk to you about it? How he does it?
He just, I don't think, there's not too much to talk about. It's just, he's just has that, he hears incredible detail. Yeah, the same thing during this time of being at home. A couple times I've called Thomas, there was a Sonny Rollins song that I've actually recorded. Again, it's like embarrassing. There's this song, Paradox. And then I've been actually gathering as much Sonny Rollins music as I can find. Sonny Rollins, again, that's another one of I always look to him. If I ever get lost or confused, it's like, oh, Sonny Rollins, he tells you what to do somehow.
Yeah.
Like, just practice, just shut up and practice or something. But I've been trying to put together in one place all the music I can find that he's written, and I want to look at it again and see what have I done wrong with this. There's so much that, again, all these details that start coming out. And so this song Paradox, I recorded it at the Village Vanguard, and now I realized all these years later, I had some of the notes wrong, I had some of the harmonies wrong, and it was hard for me I was trying to make sure I had it right, and I would call up Thomas and, hey Thomas, what was that? Can you tell me what that? Anyway, he helps me hear stuff. You know?
I know that feeling. You transcribe a song, and your ears at that time and place tell you you've got it. That's it. And then years later, you go back, and then you're like, what was I thinking? I mean, who transcribed this? You know.
No, I know, it happens to me.
How couldn't you have heard this? So I guess that's a good indicator that there is progress, and there's an evolution, and there's things that we can't unlock in a certain time, but we might get around to later.
Yeah, for sure. But then I'm like embarrassed to think, oh wow, I actually recorded that song, but this was wrong or that was wrong. But I guess that's part of the deal too.
Paradox. On what record is this?
It's you want me to, I can find it real fast. I'll be right back. What is the name of the record? Work Time. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
It's
It
got,
has
there's
Max
no,
Roach.
yeah, Ray Bryant,
Huh.
George Morrow, Max Roach, 1955.
Nice. We were talking about Thomas Morgan, and to me as a listener, when I hear you guys together, it just feels right. It just feels so together. And I'm wondering how it was for you when you first heard him, and how it felt for you when you then first played together. And maybe you can describe your relationship a little bit more.
Well, I met him, Joey Barron introduced me to him, and the very first time we met was at a rehearsal. Joey was doing a recording where Ron Carter was the bass player on the recording, but he wanted to have a rehearsal and just go over the music. And he had known about Thomas, so he just asked him to come and play at the rehearsal. So that was where I met him, and Joey had very specific bass parts for Ron to play and wanted to see how it would work. And so that first rehearsal, I think Thomas might have still been a student, or I'm not sure. He was not that long after he'd come to New York, I think. And he came and he just played. It was just perfect, just great. But that wasn't what uh, was amazing. Like, wow, he just came and he played everything just exactly like the way Joey wanted it to be. But that wasn't what, that didn't, I mean, I could see already, but what really flipped me out was later we met some more, and then I started to realize, wait a minute, there's something else going on with him. The choices that he makes and the way he's hearing the whole everything around him. And so what really flipped me out was there was a Kenny Wollesen, the drummer. He set up this recording session with, it was just unbelievable how many, I don't even know how many people were in there. There was, well, it was Butch Morris was conducting the whole thing, and there were rappers, there was like a percussion section, there was a brass section, there was me and Steve Cardenas were playing guitars, there was Don Falzone, who I mentioned before, was playing bass, Thomas was playing bass, there were like DJ guys. It was like, wow, so much going on, kind of chaotic situation, and a lot of sound coming from, sounds coming from every direction. And I just remember there was this one that happens to me, or it's happened in the past a couple times throughout this density. I heard this one note that was just the most clear. It wasn't loud. It was just placed in the midst of this thing. And I turned around and it was just Thomas, just ping, just this one note. And it was like, whoa, how did he know to put that right in that one spot,
Mm.
So that's where I really noticed this guy, there's something really going on with him. And so then after that, I would go see him play. Like saw him play with Jacob Sachs, and I'd go see him play at different times. And he started playing more often with Paul Motion, and then I felt like the first time we really played on a kind of really close, intimate way was on what turned out to be Paul's last album. Was with Petra Haden, and that. And
such a great record, man.
Yeah, that was, and that's where we did that record, and I was like, man, we got to play together more often. And it was pretty much right after that we started playing a lot.
And on that record, it sounds like you've been playing together forever. You know, maybe that's also because of motion a little bit, bringing you guys all together, but also just the vibe you guys have together. It's incredible.
Well, it just always feels that way. Like he knows wherever I could possibly be, he's there before I get there. So.
Can you describe?
It's almost a I mean, it's like it's like almost a physical sensation in my hands. You know, the way the notes, when have my instrument and the way the notes vibrate, it's like you can feel him. It's like he's
there.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so any direction I go, or it's just I've said that sometimes. I almost don't like to talk about it because it feels, I don't want to break the spell of it or something.
Okay.
But it's like I've never seen anyone. It's like he doesn't play anything. It's like he's reacting to what's happening, but he's reacting before it happens.
Yeah.
So it's a weird, it's almost like he's traveling through time or something, because you watch him and it's his attention is so intense, his concentration is so intense, and it's this, but he's not jumping ahead or he's not behind, he's just right there. And
is it a feeling that you got from somebody else similar?
Well, I don't know, it's hard to compare. I don't know, he's like you have that, it's the thing you're always hoping, this connection that you have. I mean, I've been lucky to have that with a lot of people. But no, with him, it's a different, I mean, there's so many people that I feel a strong hookup with, but he's Thomas Morgan.
Yeah. You have done so much great things with a lot of different bands throughout such a long time. I mean, you've had so many great bands and very different bands also. You're talking about that hookup. Where do you think the hookup comes from?
Well, just if people are just listening, and not, I have to play with people where I feel like I can. I mean, the most amazing thing is where you feel like you can take a risk or make a mistake. Like, you don't have to worry about making a mistake. If you're afraid to make a mistake, then nothing's going to go anywhere. I mean, my hope is that every moment in the music is going to be at the edge of what we don't know. That's what I want it to be. I don't want it to just be all figured out and I want it to be, I want every moment to be like unexplainable or something, So there's so much trust, and just, you're reminding me of Ron Miles, the trumpet player who I play with a lot.
Yeah.
And he has this way of, I don't know how to explain. There's this extraordinary amount of trust where I've played a lot of his. We started out, he was play in my bands a lot, and he would always just bring so much to my music, like really coming from, he would see what was at the core of what I was trying to do, and he would always make something more with it. But when I started playing his music, like now in the last few years, I've been playing a lot more in his groups and his music. And every single time, I could show you some of that too. I mean, every single time I go, like we have a gig and we have like a couple hours to rehearse or whatever. There's never enough time to rehearse. And maybe I sort of knew the tunes from the last time, but every single time he'll come with these giant sheets of like more and more and more music. And I'm looking at it and it's like, you got to be crazy. There's no way how can we do this? It's too much. We don't have enough time. I can't. And we somehow will run through it a little bit at the rehearsal. And then what always happens is he's so unafraid. That's contagious. So, okay, let's just go. So we go for it and it always works out. And I don't know how to, he has a way of, he'll bring in like something very involved and all kinds of detail and all sorts of stuff in it, all sorts of rhythmic time changes. And, it's not like simple music, but then when we play, he allows it to, it's okay if it goes off the rails and then you come back on and everybody's trusting each other. And you try to, if somebody falls down, you help them back up or whatever. And that's just the most amazing feeling when everybody's doing that together.
Yeah.
Like take your attention off where don't worry about you have to play something, but for me, it seems like the better I'm playing is the further I am away from my own.
Absolutely, yeah.
If my attention is on whoever else is in the band fully, then it's works out better,
Yeah, for us as listeners, with these bands you talked about, it's very it shows itself. You with Brian Blade and Ron Miles together as a trio. There's so much room for exploration and also things to go wrong, but everybody helps each other, being there for each other. And also with that quintet, I thought it was a very interesting combination of people also.
Yeah,
Jason
like
Moran
all those guys. Yeah, Jason too. It's like, I don't know how especially with piano, it's not always, sometimes you have to be careful or this, but with him, I don't have to edit what I'm playing, and hopefully he doesn't either. I don't know, but it always feels like he could play something very dense, but with it, there's still incredible space. There's always room for. Paul Bley had that too. Like when I got to play with him, it was like, because the piano can be so powerful. It just, one note on a piano can just wipe out all the overtones and everything. It can just wipe out the guitar somehow, but Paul Bley was another one that he played that instrument, but it was like, wow, it's like anything I play, there's a room for it.
I love these recordings with you and him. It's incredible. Did he give you any specific advice or notes?
Oh, that was another, talk about paper. Like, he didn't want to have any, the first recording we did, I think that was the first time the very first time I played with him was the first album we made on ECM with
Fragments,
Paul Motion, and John Sermon. And that album, there was a little bit of written music. But even then, I remember he said something about, I don't want any paper or something. He said, I don't want any paper.
That's in the studio or in the rehearsal?
Yeah, that was, no, we went into the studio and then we started recording. And another thing he did, a little lesson he gave me in that when we first met, I was going to tune up. I wanted to tune to the piano. So he plays a note, and then he goes pling, and I go pling. And he goes, wait a minute. I mean, why don't you listen to the note before like, and it was like, oh yeah. Like, so then it was like, he would play the note and then oh yeah, I should just listen to that note for a while. And then I'm going to go pling and then I'll know if it's in it. That was great. But then we did that album, and then later, whenever it was, later in that year, we did this long tour of Europe, and we went to Martinique and Guadeloupe, and it was all over England and Europe, and it was like about 5 weeks. And that tour, we never used every note was just improvised, and that was really. Remember, we started in London, and I'm thinking, what are we going to do? And we just started playing, and that was incredible. With Sermon, also John Sermon, we got, so we would be playing these melodies. They were improvised, but we were playing in unison. Just the listening was so intense, that was an amazing. So then at the end of that, we recorded the second album that was more represent. I mean, it's kind of a great. They were sort of a year apart, I think, where we did that first album where we had just met, and then we played a lot, and we spent a lot of time together. We traveled all over the place, rode the trains together. Also, I remember Paul saying, this is when, I would have a cassette recorder and a blah, blah, blah. He said, I remember on the train, he said, won't be long before people just use their computer you won't even need to. It was like right when CDs were starting to come out, and CDs was like some new big deal. He said, that's going to be people just, and I'm thinking, what are you
some kind of prophet.
I mean, he was seeing way into the future.
What was his vibe like? I mean, the vibes of the two Pauls on the road.
Well, that was just to be around those guys, because they had so much history from before. Right. And boy, I wish I could remember everything, all the stories, and because we'd be sitting on during that time, most of the tour was on train in Europe anyway, was more trains. Now it seems like we're flying all the time, but back then it was. So we'd be sitting on a train for a long periods of time, or a bus sometimes. And so Paul would be talking a lot. Blay.
Yeah.
And I wish I could, it's just incredible stories about this guy or that guy or something happened.
Did you ask him about Sonny?
I said we didn't have any that was a couple times. I'm just thinking about that solo that he plays on that album, Sonny Meets Hawk, on All the Things You Are. So do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, that's one of the, like, that was one of those, just when I heard that the first time, whenever it was, I can't believe it could even be almost 50 years ago when I heard that, or 45 years. I mean, it's when I first heard that, I just can't even tell you how startling that was, or how it still now, if I listen to it now, it's like, that was like a, just opened this, it's like split everything open into this world of like, what the, I don't even know what to say about that. So what I'm saying, I don't remember him. I can't remember. I must have asked him about, but there were a couple times during that tour where he played all the things you are, and there was that sort of thing, was like sometimes there would be some reference to some standard song or something, and that sort of thing was like, oh, let me, and then by the time it was time for me to play, we would be onto something else. Oh shit, I missed my, but I can't remember if he talked specifically about
it's okay.
Sonny.
Yeah, just wondering.
But you just reminded me of that solo on that thing. I could just listen to that.
That's pretty special.
I would never. And but that sense of where the line or his ear was taking him to this place where he's still connected to the earth, or to the, but to get that to that point where you can just, you're not letting any of what you've been conditioned to do hold you back. It's just, man.
Very courageous player, that guy.
Yeah.
Do you think you know where he got the courage from?
I mean, he definitely had confidence. That's, he was sure. He just wasn't, I remember like these little things traveling, like I could see how he wasn't afraid of certain things. Like I remember one time we were at an airport, there's like just a mob of, we're trying to get through to I forget the security or the show our tickets or something. And there's like this hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm like so nervous, like, oh God, we're going to miss our flight. And he's just standing there. He was so calm, like just that didn't faze him at all. I mean, it was sort of that, it's like he knew we weren't going to miss, but I guess if we did, it wouldn't have made any difference, because what can you do? He just had he didn't let stuff like that get in. And I was like, oh God, what if we miss the gig or whatever, so he had that with, when you would go on the bandstand too, just, there was this confidence, and he was sure.
And Motion was a confident guy too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In a way, I mean, like he knew what he wanted also.
Yeah. I mean, he was just so clear about staying true to his the music was so important, you know, that he just would sacrifice. I mean, I feel so lucky when I first met him to see that example of, it was right early in the time when he had really committed to doing his own, he wanted to write his own music and have his own band and all that.
Yeah.
And just to see how true he stayed to that without letting other temptations take him away from it. And, you know, at the beginning, there was no money, or there was no gigs. There was not like, because it was like, I rehearsed with him almost the whole year before we even did a gig. And then those first tours and stuff, it wasn't, I mean, for me, it was unbelievable. To get paid at all for anything, but it was amazing. but, you know, he definitely could have gone another way and probably made more money or done, but he just stuck with it.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what you've learned from him also in maybe the way of leading a band or important moments in all the years you've made music together?
I don't even know wouldn't quite know where to begin. Just
like, maybe is there something in how you lead a band today that you can say you have definitely taken that as advice from him, or something you saw him do, you know, that you kind of incorporated into the way you do stuff now?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, I don't know if I can do it, but I think what was, from the very first moment I played with him, it was his band. You knew you knew he was the leader. It was his band, but it actually felt like he made us feel like it was our band, you know, or it made me feel like it was, again, I guess it's just that kind of trust that you put in the people he put that trust in me. Just immediately I could tell, I knew that he wanted me for the person that I was, not just that I played. I know he wanted a guitar player, but it was more about, he trusted me. And in that way, it was like when I played his music, it felt like, wow, I could go full out. It wasn't like I was trying to please him. It became my own music. And I hope I can do that I mean, one thing with my bands, I'm always playing with guys everybody I play with, I feel like they're my teacher, you know, like it's not like I'm the big guy that knows what's happening. Everybody I'm playing with plays better than I play. So I'm just trying to keep up with the guys that I get in my band, basically.
Yeah.
It's like they're constantly teaching me what to do. So I don't know if that wasn't really with him, it was more that he gave us that kind of confidence that we were worth being there. So, and then the thing with we played so long, it was 30 years we played. And I swear I've said this so many times, but every single time we play, whatever song it was, even a song that we'd played a million times or a song we'd never played, it was like, I was like, oh my God, I never knew what he was going to do, So it always had that. I mean, that's maybe what I was talking about, wanting to be in that place where you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. You just got to stay in that. And he had this amazing ability to just always keep it at that point, So I feel so lucky that I experienced that, and hopefully I can keep that that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no matter how many times we played it, it wasn't like being nervous. It's just this sort of adrenaline, like energy that you get from, you can't let your attention had to be just absolutely, you couldn't not have your attention 100% there.
Mm-hmm. I admire you for so many things, and there's so much things I want to know. But I'm very interested in how you find new sounds, how you find new ways of addressing a chord, meaning a voicing, without going into the same direction each time. It seems to me like the way you've incorporated specific intervals into your voicings allowed for a very, very sparse sounds, and yet to me that sparseness comes together with being very, very rich and full. Like a 3-note voicing with, I don't know if I can still play something like this, is something I heard from you, having having a minor ninth in there and stuff like that. But you can use it over so many different bass notes. It creates a very rich texture and very rich sound without giving everything away. I'm wondering how you've worked on that.
Boy, I like hard question. I mean, it's just so slow. It's like this. It's just this constant reaching for something that you every day. You try to. I don't. I don't. I mean, I don't have any real system, or
Mm-hmm.
you just keep plugging away, and then something will. I guess that thing about less. A lot of times, taking something away. I think more and more I'm finding that there's something to be said. I'm discovering how much happens when you take, like, if you think of stacking well, I remember that was another thing I was working on another song that I thought I had knew, but then this was some years ago. Well, You Needn't, the Monk song.
Mm-hmm.
And first I realized that I was playing the melody wrong, or
Yeah,
it was
me too.
whatever, it was based on this or that, and then there were different ways of playing the bridge. And then I, so then I, I thought I went through all this stuff I thought, okay, now I've got the whole thing correct. And then it was almost like Monk came, and it was amazing. I couldn't believe. For some reason, I found this interview with Monk where they were playing his songs for other people. I think it might have been Phineas Newborn or something. They played Well You Needn't for him by someone else. And it got to the bridge, and Monk said, no, that's not, shouldn't. Anyway, the chord was like, and now if I can even remember let's just say it's a D flat chord with an E flat on the top. And I thought, oh, from all my training, you just stack up the chord. So it's like a D flat 9, D flat 7 with a E flat. And he said, no, you shouldn't play the 7th.
Yeah.
Shouldn't play the 7th on that chord. It's just a triad with the 9th on, like a D flat triad and an E flat. And it was like, whoa, I thought it was okay to just stick all the other stuff
Yeah.
in there. But then I realized what a difference that makes to just take something out, or I've been messing around a little bit with scales. Like, what if I don't play all the notes of the scale?
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, of course, like whatever, there's all kinds of pentatonic things, but what about 6-note scales? And then it just by play 6-note scales instead of 7-note scales, and that there's something starts to happen. I'm talking about some things I just was thinking. It takes me for it, but in the last few days, I was just messing around with some stuff like that, and taking things out, and then again, monk is like sort of the precision and the detail of how he picked notes that would have an impact with the least, with not, you don't have to play a big, huge thing. And then that for a guitar player, it's great because, I can't play a 10-note chord really on the guitar. So he's like a amazing teacher of how to get a lot of impact with a few notes.
Absolutely. And you're one of the greatest examples, I think, for me, to transport his harmonic language onto the guitar. And it's actually what you're mentioning, the stuff that I was interested in, without me asking. It's perfect. I was gonna ask you actually how you worked on that, and I think you already answered it a little bit.
Jim Hall too, he was a master of that, like finding the most color in, you don't have to just play some giant thing. He would just find what has the most, I don't know, like find a way to imply something big with something small or something.
Mm-hmm. That's the sparseness and the richness I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I had the same experience with Well You Needn't, actually. I didn't read that interview, but I also thought I knew it. And actually, before that, I thought I knew it. I thought I didn't like it so much. I love Monk's music, but there are certain tunes I gravitate more to than others. And I don't know if you know that feeling. Sometimes you put something away and say, yeah, that's not my favorite song. And then you go, you have to learn it for a gig or whatever. And then you learn it, and all of a sudden you realize what you've been missing.
Yeah.
And it's usually at least for me, something that I didn't understand before. That wasn't part of my language yet. And it's
totally.
A way of, it's a way of saying, being afraid of something, and therefore saying, I'm afraid, I don't know, I don't like it,
Yeah.
And it's a cheap way out in a way, right? Just because you're afraid, which you don't realize before. You say, it's not for me. And now I love that song,
Yeah. And then when you hear, then you think you know it, and then you hear him playing it, and it's like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much unexplainable stuff. I mean, talk about the way he places. I'll learn these songs again, like where everything is placed in the correct, and then you listen to it. Wait a minute, he's playing the melody that's supposed to be in the first measure, but he's playing it like halfway through the second measure, and the chord's supposed to, and it's like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
like there's this sort of unexplainable stuff that starts, I don't know. Sonny too, like has that. I listened to him, all this stuff, and then especially if you see him live or something, and it's like, what the it, it it's like it's coming from, no matter what you think you knew or understood, it's some other it's so mysterious what's going on.
For me, a big lesson was when I read this interview of Monk, and he said, everybody's talking about my weird chords, my weird harmonies, and I don't know what they're talking about. For me, it's just logical.
Yeah.
And that turned my head around,
Yeah.
Because a little part of me, that's years ago, but a little part of me thought, yeah, they're weird chords. They are weird. And once I read that little sentence, now I see it. I can see it. I can see what he's doing. I wouldn't say I've unlocked his mystery or something, but I can see the logic in it. And once I saw the logic in it, I just fell in love with it even more, and also saw his influence on how many people he taught. That were more in the spotlight, like Dizzy and Miles, and you see and Bud. You see where they took the things that he was developing. It's incredible. Here's something that I want to know, but I don't really know how to put into words. But the thing is, what I've written down in my notes is the first note that I wrote down for this interview. And I don't really follow my notes. It's just, they're here for, for me to get into the mood or whatever. Well, when I was listening to you all these past days, obviously I was in a kind of I was only listening to you, and I've been listening to you for ages, but in these past days, I've been only listening to you for the whole day, which is great. I went back to old recordings that I hadn't listened to for a long time, and I checked out some new recordings that I hadn't checked out before. It was just great and so inspiring. And if there wouldn't have been an interview, those 2 days would have been, just incredible alone. But what I see from the very first recording that I heard from you, or that I found from the Nino Rota recording, to the latest stuff you put out. And you're noticing already, I don't know how to put it into words. I wrote down realizing / or giving into one's personality. And that's not really a question, but I wonder when you realized or got an idea for what you wanted to sound like, or how you sound. And then sometimes there are moments which I know, and maybe you had them too, when you listen to somebody play a solo before you in a band, and that they're shredding all over the place, and it's it's virtuoso type stuff or something, and then now it's time for your solo, and you're wondering, who am I? What can I add? And that's the moment where sometimes we realize, okay, who am I? I'm not that guy. That was great. But that's not me. Who am I? Can I do this? Is it okay to not do this, but to do this? And when I listened to the first recording of, I think the Nino Rota was your first recording, right? Or maybe one of the first.
Well, early, especially after I came. I mean, there's a few things I did in Europe before that, but that was sort of the first thing.
And it seems like your individuality is already so apparent and so formed that you must have this epiphany or this moment of realization pretty early on.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's where I don't, it's something that didn't come from, that's more of an external, like still now, I'm, I'm, I feel like I'm always trying for something that I can't do, or I'm always, you know, all the people that we're talking about, Sonny Rollins or Monk or whoever, or Frank Sinatra or whoever, all I'm doing is my own attempt at getting close to that thing that I love about what that is. And it always feels like it's just a nowhere close to, I'm trying to imitate this other thing that I can't get to.
Mm.
And I'll never get there. But somewhere along the way, like, I don't know when, so people would say, wow, someone else would tell me that I had a unique sound or something, I guess. But I'm not sure if I even knew that myself. I don't know if that's what it's an awareness that came from other people, because all I'm trying to do is just imitate everything. And but then there's also that I know that feeling of, you have to be sure enough of yourself. It's a hard question. I don't know. I mean, I think like, just as I'm struggling to speak right now, that's the same. Every person on the planet has their own voice, right? When you talk, we know that this is you. When you talk, that's you. And so when you play, that's gonna, if we can just not be afraid to, I mean, I spent time, I think, early on being embarrassed or afraid of showing where I came from. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and I grew up during the 50s and the 60s. But there was a time when I wanted to be a cool jazz guy that was from another era or something. And that wasn't being honest, So there's something about not being afraid to, you have to show what your own life is, and then your own voice comes out in that. And I mean, again, I go back, like Sonny Rollins, it was almost like a lesson from him. Like, I wanted to, I would learn a Sonny Rollins song, or I would play a song that Sonny Rollins played. But then there was a point, wait a minute, that song that he's playing, Surrey with the Fringe on Top or whatever, that was a song that he heard when he was whatever, how old he was, or that was a song. And then so me then, well, wait a minute, why can't I play Surfer Girl? Because that's, when I was a kid, I liked that song, so I'll play that. So it's almost like I got by being inspired by those guys, after a point, it's not about trying to play like them, it's about these other lessons that they're to be, and like with Paul, Paul Motion had his, when we did those Broadway albums, those were the songs from his earlier in his life. Like, he knew the words, or he knew them from a movie, or whereas for me, they're more, I've learned to know them and love them too, but it's coming later to them, or they weren't like part of my childhood or something as much as like for him. So anyway, there's this thing about, I think my advice to like some younger player, you just don't be afraid of, deep down inside what really you actually like. Don't be afraid to show it to somebody else, because if you like it, if you love it, that's what's going to come out in the music. You can't know what somebody else is going to like. You can't try to figure out what somebody else is going to like.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never know what that is. But if you are playing what you just love, I think that feeling transmits to other people more strongly than anything.
Mm-hmm. And it's so personal. I mean, if you and me would listen to the same song of Sonny Rollins right now, we would both acknowledge its greatness for sure, no matter which song. We would say, this is great, this is Sonny, we love Sonny. But the moments where you will light up might not be the moments. There might be the same moments that we realize, wow, this was great, right? But then there would be moments where you would light up and I would light up in different moments.
Yeah.
And
there's no way everybody hears completely. Everybody's hearing something different.
Absolutely. But I also see that these are the moments that we have to then follow with everything we have in order to find that connection and to strengthen it, and then it becomes part of us.
Yeah, totally.
Can we talk about Mike Gibbs a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Since he's been an important guy for you and for me as well. And he's the guy who brought us together.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, this is a little crazy, long story, but toward the end of high school is when I discovered Wes Montgomery. I always think of that as that was a big, like, sort of entry into, I was playing in bands at school, like rock bands and with my friends, and I was into blues and kind of R&B, whatever stuff, pop music. And then I heard a Wes Montgomery, my band director at school. There was a talent show at the school, and my band director said, well, I was playing clarinet in the school band, but there was these girls that were doing this dance routine, and they were using Bumpin' on Sunset, Wes Montgomery's song. They were putting on the record, and then they would do this dance thing. And the band director said, man, it would be so much better if we had live music. Do you think you could? So he gave me this Wes Montgomery record, and I was like, what? It was like this link between sort of the pop music and then jazz, or whatever you call it. It was just a major moment, me discovering him and then going and buying more of his albums. And it was also the point where I realized I must find a teacher. I got to try to get this together because I really want to play. And so this was 1967, I think, when I heard that album. And then by 1968, it was the summer of 68, and Wes Montgomery was going to come to Denver to play. So this is where I'm just getting really fired up about music, and I started hearing all this stuff within just months. There's that Wes Montgomery had Ron Carter was playing bass, and then then I would wait, he's playing on a Kenny Burrell record, and then there's blah blah blah, and then Herbie Hancock's on this, and then there's Miles Davis, and there's blah blah blah. It was just like just coming at me like crazy. So anyway, there's the Newport jazz festival was doing this traveling show, and Wes Montgomery was going to be on this concert. So that's really was, I got to see Wes Montgomery. So my dad got us tickets, and I can't wait. And then he passed away right before the concert. So I never got to see him live, but I went to the concert anyway. And on that concert was Dionne Warwick was sort of the big, most popular person on the and then there was Cannonball Adderley and Thelonious Monk and Gary. That's the only time I saw Monk play live, was at basically my first jazz concert. And I didn't know what was going on then. But then there was Gary Burton's band with Larry Coryell and Steve Swallow and Bob Moses.
Oh, Bob Moses.
No, it's Bob Moses. And that was like, so I'm just sort of coming to terms with, not coming to terms with, but just to give you an idea how much music was coming at me all of a sudden. But I heard that band and it was like, what the, Larry Coryell again it was like this link from this whole world of music that I hadn't even begun to figure out, and then sort of like looking into the future or something. And so that was, I just immediately, wow, I've got to check this out more. So I started buying these Gary Burton records, and like, what is it? There's a sound, there's some kind of a sound here or something, and started noticing Mike Gibbs' name on a lot of those songs. And and then Ron, talk about Ron Carter, then I buy Stan Getz record Sweet Rain,
yeah,
with Chick Corea and Grady Tate and Ron Carter, and that song, like, there's this sound in this, there was something, it was like, so he wasn't one of the guys that you would see, he was in the background, right? He was like, but I just kept noticing that name and these songs that he wrote. And then, so I was a fan, and then so years go by, whatever, a few more years go by, and I go to school in Boston, and I get to the school, and I didn't even know that wow, Mike Gibbs is here and he's teaching, and it was like, it was like I just won the lottery or something. It was like, I just couldn't believe that he was there. That's the guy, And then so during that time, I took all of his classes and got to play in his band, his student bands and all that. And that's how we got to know each other. And then when I left Boston, I went to Belgium. I stayed in Belgium for a year, and soon after I was there, he had a tour of England with his own music. And I think normally at that time Philip Catherine was playing in his band, or when he would do gigs, Philip Catherine was the guy that he was using. Another amazing guitar player from Belgium. Yeah. But for some reason he wasn't available for this tour. And Mike knew that I was over there, so he called me so that was like the first real tour that I had done. And I mean, he took it, because he knew that I knew the music from being in school and all that, so it was like, wow, I couldn't. And on the band was Kenny Wheeler was in the band, and it was the first time, meeting all these. They were all my heroes. Eberhard Weber was playing bass. Charlie Mariano, John Marshall was playing drums. Anyway, it was like this, like I was suddenly in with all these guys that were my heroes. And so then that's also how my first connection with ECM records was Eberhard. There was a segment during the concert where Mike would just let Eberhard and me play a duet. And it was just sort of improvised space that we could just play. And I think from that, Eberhard he really loved what I was doing. And he had this recording coming up just a month later or something, and he invited me to come. So that was the first time I met Manfred Eicher, and Gary Burton was on that record. Fluid Russell was called. So it was just like this incredible. With Mike, it was like he had been such a inspiration before I met him, and then as soon as I met him, it was like he kept opening these doors. And then when I moved to New York, about a year later, then Mike was in New York, and he would call me for gigs. And again, that's how I met, really how I met Steve Swallow and Bob Moses was on those gigs. I can't even think of who all was in those bands, but so many opportunities like that. But more just I just love him so much, and then as years go by, we've gotten to just do more and more. And well, just the thing, like, it's so simple again. It's like to be with someone, like what I was talking about. If you love something, like when you're playing, if you love this thing and that's so contagious. Like what I love, some of the most memorable, or I don't know what the word, just these moments of joy being with Mike is like, you can talk about a note, like what a certain note sounds like on a certain chord, and it's like, oh my God, the joy in just, if you play a C, try it, and then if this one note, whatever this other note, or and this kind of enthusiasm for what one note will do, or what chord one chord will do. Or
he was always like that.
Yeah.
That's so great to have somebody like that when you study. Somebody who's in a way he's older than he's in another generation, but he has the same enthusiasm like a upcoming kid.
Oh yeah, like
gone off
totally.
To school.
Yeah, and he would, in Boston, it was incredible. He would come so often to check out whatever little gigs I was doing in little clubs. Or there was a time a really good friend of mine, D Sharp, drummer, who played in Carla Bley's band, and
such a great name also for a musician.
Yeah, it's perfect. And he had a band where we would play every Wednesday night at this little club in Boston, and just like almost every week Mike was there listening. He was just so supportive and enthusiastic.
Yes. What was he like as a teacher?
Well, it was like that too. There were technical things, but not so much. It was more like he would play us Charles Ives piece or something, like the unanswered question or something. And then I remember him talking about whatever, there's this tonality, and then this one note comes in. I should have, see, I'm a bad student. I don't remember exactly. It's like whatever it is, it's like a C triad, and then there's a F sharp comes in at a certain, like,
Yeah.
he would, that's not what it is, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Whatever, it's like, it was just this, or messy, he talked about Messiaen a lot, some of that harmonies there, and kind of would explain where some of his ideas had grown from thinking about some of those things. But it wasn't so much, again, it wasn't so much the technical stuff that I remember. It was more the enthusiasm or the excitement of the joy of what a certain melody or note could do to you.
Yeah, he still has that. I feel like it's getting even more and more with each year. I feel like how much joy he gets out of discovering new things and still studying stuff.
Yeah.
Incredible. Such a sweet guy. We've recently lost McCoy Tyner. And I know you've played with him for quite a while, and I want to know how it felt to play with him. And
that's another, like, I just can't, it seems like a dream or something. I don't know how that even happened. I just feel like I'm so lucky. I don't know. I don't know what to say, but I just feel like it was just amazing that I got to spend time with him and try to absorb. Again, a lot of my memories are, of course, the music, being in the music with him, and I learned so much. He would never say what song we're going to play, or he would just start playing, and you had to be ready. And I was so thankful for, like, Gary Bartz. Every time I played with McCoy, Gary Bartz was there. He was like man, that guy, it's another, just, I can't believe I got to play with him either. The first time I saw him was when I saw Miles in 1971. And well, just all the, and Eric Gravatt, who, I mean, I saw, this is in the very early 70s, and I saw McCoy play often with Alphonse Mouzon, who I also got to play with. And then I remember, I think it was even during this one particular week or something, Alphonse left and Eric Gravatt came in, and it was this, I remember seeing them it was so amazing to see McCoy's face and Eric Gravatt's face on that gig where they were playing together after they hadn't played for a while or something, and it was this joy again, Now I'm forgetting what I was, well, anyway, I was saying how Gary Bartz was so generous with me. Like, I'm coming into this situation that I don't know, and he would help me, tell me what song it was, or tell me what the chords were, or something.
You didn't get any sheet music either?
Well, yeah, I had as much as I could gather, or try to get a list of what he might do, and then just try to learn it. But every once in a while he'd play something that I didn't quite know, and then Gary would sort of lead me through it. And
it's good, yeah.
He really, he was so generous and great, But a lot of the other memories of just being with McCoy, again, because we're traveling every day and walking through the airport, and I just wanted to be with him the whole time,
Yeah.
I just tried to stay with him all the time, and it was incredible. And there was never any never a rehearsal or anything like that. Never. We just played. I remember I called before the first gig. I called him up on the phone and I said, it's Bill. I'm going to be on the gig, and he just said, "Oh yeah, it's not the Army. We're gonna." He said we're just we're gonna have fun. He put me at ease. I was still so nervous, but yeah, that was amazing. And then the way there was, after a number of nights playing, I felt like I was starting to hear again. I can't even explain. A couple times I found myself, wow, I just played some McCoy stuff. It's like I absorbed something that I always wanted to have, but I didn't even know how I got there. But it was like he was pulling my ear. Yeah, that was amazing.
You were talking before about that relationship of piano and guitar, and you said that the density of or the power that the piano can have sometimes can erase the guitar. How did you maneuver this with McCoy?
Well, actually, something in the nature of the overall orchestration of the whole. I mean, again, what a incredible accompanist, I think that's what I was maybe experiencing, like, wow, I can't believe I would find myself playing some line that maybe he was, I don't know, whatever he was playing behind me was like, it's like he was showing me some way to go that I hadn't been before or something. So I guess my function in that group was, a lot of the groups I play in, I feel I'm being the orchestrator of things, maybe more or something. And that group, he was the orchestrator, arranger. But it wasn't that I felt like I still had an impact. It wasn't like
for sure, yeah.
And I could still play harmonically. I could play chords, or I don't know. But the whole thing was, probably more dense but anyway, I don't know how to describe it exactly.
When I kind of had my first lessons that were more jazz oriented, and also in terms of playing together with other people. And back in those days, I was in combos, as a teenager, where there would be multiple horn players for sure, but also multiple, there would be a guitarist and a piano player.
Oh yeah.
And in a way, that wasn't studying at conservatory. That was, music school, where I would go for piano lessons and then sometimes ensemble lessons. And in a way, we were instilled already that piano and guitar is hard. That's a hard thing to do. In a way, we get accustomed to that already, or that we are being taught that this is supposed to be a hard thing.
They tell you that, and then it's like sets up a prejudice or something, and it's so much not about. To me, it's not the instrument; it's who you're playing with and how people are listening. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter if it's a piano.
But I really like to play with the guitarist, and a lot of my favorite music is with keyboards and guitar, or piano and guitar, and to me it just works perfectly. if the people involved are listening, and
yeah, that's the whole thing. It's listening.
yeah. But did your story with McCoy start with that guitars record that he did?
Yeah, just did that, and that was again very intimidating. It's so quick. I had met him once before, very briefly, but literally like in a dressing room hello type.
Yeah.
Just there's no way he would have even remembered, I don't think. But really, it was that recording where we actually met, but it happened so it was like a day. They had it scheduled. I don't know how many people came in that day. Like I think
Schofield was there.
Yeah, I think he was there right before me, and then me, and then somebody else came. So you just had, okay, you've got 2 hours or whatever it is. You're going to learn this song, and then or these songs, record it, and on to the next person come in. So it was just bam, bam, bam. And, of course, I wish I could have had a few more tries at that. And then it's like, Jack DeJohnette and Ron Carter. It's like, wow.
And the film team also. It was also, they also did a DVD out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's just really intense. Just hoping that you're going to get through there okay. And then I was surprised when he asked me to play. Then there was one gig came up at the Blue Note just one night somewhere, and then they asked me to do that whole tour. The most I did was this. We did like, I don't know what it was, 3-week tour in Europe, and then that's where I really got to spend time with them. And then we also did a week at a club in Seattle. That was amazing. 6 nights in a club and playing every night in a club with McCoy. Like, wow. We did a couple other gigs after that.
I think in 1971 you had your first lesson with Jim Hall, right?
Yeah, or I think when I'm thinking, I think it was 1972 now. If I remember.
Okay. I'm wondering what you remember from that lesson.
Well, I had met him, my teacher in Denver, Dale Bruning. He had come to Denver sometime before that, almost a year before that. I met him, I guess, and he played in this club in Denver, and that was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And then I had left Denver. I had gone to Boston, and then I kind of this is 1971. I went to Boston for the first time, and I didn't take to it at all. I just wanted to get out, and I went and stayed with my parents in New Jersey, and I guess I wrote Jim a letter, or probably wrote him a letter, I guess. Asked him if I could take some lessons, and he said yes. And then he was playing at this little club. It was called The Guitar, where they just had guitar players play, and him and Ron Carter were playing duo at this club. And I was with my dad, and we went to hear that. And I got there just as it was like on 9th Avenue or something. We pulled up, and we were just crossing the street to go into the club, and this cab pulls up, and it's Jim getting out of the cab with his amp. So I helped him take his stuff inside, and that was before I had the lesson, and that was so cool to hear him in that. Wow. Anyway, then I think, I've talked about this so many times. I think what struck me, he was like something larger than life, sort of a god, for me, like a movie star. I mean, it was like if I was meeting Marilyn Monroe or something, it was just, I couldn't. But what happened when I went to the first lesson, I think it was Stella by Starlight. We played some song.
Yeah.
And I guess immediately what happened was the way he made me feel like I could actually play. What he played was so supportive of what I was playing that he gave me the impression that wow, I can actually play. And then I realized that was this kind of one of his secrets for everybody, that he played, whether he was with Sonny Rollins or Bill Evans or Art Farmer or even me, the whole thing about him was trying to make the whole situation better and make everybody. And then, when I listened to I think that's what's all the groups that he played in, or whoever he was playing with, he was always coming from the inside of the music out, and talking about orchestrating, he was like hearing the whole picture, and he wouldn't play anything that wasn't propelling the whole thing forward, but it wasn't like coming in on top of it. It was coming from like this down below, and then subverting it in very subtle. I don't know, that's what I really still have always loved about that's what I carry with me all the time, with whatever group I'm playing with. I'm sort of always thinking about, how do you make the whole thing sound good, or make the whole thing sound, what can you do to make it cool,
Today was the first time I listened to that record Hemispheres of you guys. I didn't know about this record before, and which was great. So I checked it out, and I was really, really touched by how you guys dealt with each other. I was really moved by it, because it wasn't like him being, in a way, your, one of your role models or your teachers or what have you. You didn't put him on a pedestal, being like, okay, this is a kind of a feature record, or you didn't also go into this kind of direction, like showing, I can also play. No, it was so egoless, and so not that this is something that surprises me in your music, because this is always there, but yeah, I was really touched by that, and how you guys, that track, Migration.
Oh yeah, that was just improvised or something.
I couldn't believe the vibe on that. I mean, how you danced around him, or how you kind of created a vibe for him to just react to, and how he then took this and not played kind of a solo on top, but he did, in a way, he did the same right back at you, in a way, like, okay, this is your vibe for me. Okay, here's the vibe for you. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, no, he was just so wide open to try anything, not afraid, I couldn't believe this, that I had 8 lessons with him back 1972, right? So then I didn't see him until basically, so say 1972, I was this kid, and I had these lessons. So then years and years go by. I went to Boston. I went to Europe. I moved to New York, early 80s in New York. I hadn't seen Jim for 10 years or something. And I'm walking down 6th Avenue and I see him. And I go, excuse me, Jim. And he goes, oh, Bill, how's it? I mean, I couldn't believe that he remembered me from all that time. It was just amazed me that he would remember. There's no reason why he would remember me. There was no. And then, so anyway, then I sent him some stuff that I'd been doing. And the way he responded was like, wow, he's so humble. He said, wow, I was teaching you and now you're teaching me. And then he asked me to play a gig with him. And then we started actually playing gigs. First time I ever played at the Village Vanguard was with him. That's how I got into the Vanguard.
Wow.
So anyway,
was it a duet?
No. Well, the first gig we did was a duet at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. And that was, I just couldn't believe it. It was amazing. And then I guess soon after that, he asked me to play with him at the Village Vanguard. And that was with Joey Barron and Steve Laspina. But then there were we did a few duet things here and there. Like in Italy, and there were a few gigs in Italy where we played duo concerts and stuff like that.
I'm glad I checked that record out.
I haven't even listened to that either. I guess sometime I'm going to have to listen to all these things.
But you don't listen to your records, but do you record yourself sometimes? Do you record gigs and listen back to them?
No, I don't really like that. I mean, I do. We record all. Claudia, who does the sound, she records everything. So I have all this stuff, but I really don't. There's something about, I just don't want to be holding on to something, whether it's good or bad or whatever. It's just, for me, one of the biggest, is when you play one night and something amazing happens, then the next night, the worst thing you can do is to be thinking about how great that was the night before and try to do it again, I think everybody knows that by now. So I'm just trying to just keep moving along and not hang on to whatever it was I did last, I guess.
But you listen sometimes to something else right before you play? I don't
like. Like, ideally, I'd like to just have my mind clear and not listen to anything right before I play, whether it's some other band or if it's a record or anything. I'd rather just be blank, That works best for me. So it's frustrating. Sometimes, like festivals, when there's all these bands and I'd rather hear them after I play than I can.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's better to just have a blank slate.
Yeah. I do remember, though, Bill, when we played our duo bill in, I don't know if you remember this, but you actually listened to our set. And I was, I knew we were going to play a double bill, but I didn't see you before. I saw you right when I came back from the stage. I saw you sitting there listening, and that kind of freaked me out. So I guess there's an exception to the...
No, I do, because then I want to know, I want to, I don't know.
I have the same. I mean, if it's somebody like you, I will see the whole concert, but if it's something I'd rather check out some other time, I might just see a song or two and then have a little moment of quietness before the gig.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate. Yeah. Is there something like certain music that always gets you into the mood to play?
Not, no. It's not about, you mean listening to something? Or?
Yeah, listening to something that, not before a gig or something, but I have this sometimes when I feel uninspired or I feel like I don't have any ideas or whatever. I listen to something that I know I love, and I will listen to it, and I know it will get me into the mood to be inspired again or be reminded about what I love about music, you know.
Yeah, I guess for me it's almost like it's always something after. Like I like to my mind to be clear. So I don't listen to stuff. I guess when I would listen to something, usually I don't know. That's unless it's something I'm trying to figure. Like I said, I was trying to figure out this Frank Sinatra thing or something. Or some Sunny thing, and I was listening to it over and over and over again. But that's more about the learning thing. But but if I want to listen to something just for the pleasure of listening, it'll be more later after I've. The thing I really love is just to be alone with. I mean, to have the time and space just with my guitar, with my mind being not really thinking about, have it my mind be blank and then just see what I can find. So
how's it then with composition? I mean, it seems to me you write a lot of songs and for a lot of different settings and bands. But
I mean, that's the same, that same blank thing. It's like, I just start going and and then I write a lot more than I can. I'll just write whatever comes into my mind and try to not judge what it is, whether it's good or bad, and just let it come out. And then later I can go and see, oh, that's pretty good, I can use that, or it's later. But to try to just let it come out. That's
so you write it down pretty quickly.
That's what I try to do. Yeah. And sometimes a lot of times with the guitar, but sometimes just writing, trying to hear melodies and write it down. And then the guitar will help me lead me into some other places too.
Yesterday I transcribed Signs of Life, your song.
Oh, wow. Oh.
It's such a beautiful song. I really love it. I was wondering, is there a story behind it, or how you came to write this song?
Well, all that music from that whole album I was at this artist place up in Vermont where it's for painters and writers, and I was the only musician there, and so I had a month just in an empty room where that's where I just wrote every day, and that music from that whole album came out of that time there. That was amazing because I wrote the music, and then the Jenny Scheinman and Hank Roberts and Avon Kang, they came there and we tried what I had written, and then we did a little concert at the place, and then we went and recorded the album right after that. So that was great.
That's a beautiful record. One of my favorites.
But that was an unusual. That doesn't happen that often when I have that. Well, now I've got this time again. So.
Yep. We'll see what comes out of this, huh?
Better get busy.
I don't want to keep you.
That's good talking to you.
It's great to talk to you. You've been, one of my big heroes. I was really excited to talk to you, and I'm still very excited.
No.
So thank you for being part of this.
No, thanks for doing it. I hope I'll see you. I hope we can be in the same room at the same time one of these days.
Yeah, I'd love that. I hope I get to see you soon, somewhere and somehow.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.